So consent for today. What is consent and why am I talking about consent and what's on my mind about consent? I think a lot of times when consent comes up, it's about consensual sex, consenting to what you're asking me to do, being agreeable. And that is what I'm talking about in a kind of a sense, being agreeable and consenting. And I think that agreeing or consenting means you're not consciously let me start this all over because I'm not going where I want to go in my head. Or actually, my head's going in one direction and my mouth's going in the other. But what I'm effectively getting at is consent being that you are taking charge and you are deciding and you are consenting to become who you want to be, just in the same way that someone consents to, do anything with you. And I think about my life. I think about the progression of my life. I think about what I was afforded in life at the beginning, by my parents, by my heritage, by my life, by where I live, and I think about what I've chosen to take from that and what I've made of it, good and bad, because in some ways I created limitations by accepting or consenting to live and move along with somebody else's life, like people handed me stuff and like, this is the way you do life and this is what success looks like. And I go, okay, I'll do that. So I consented. But with it, there was a real lack of awareness because I wasn't even sure what I was consenting to. And then I ended up unhappy with the way my life was. So then I had to find something else, but I didn't even know because I had nobody to follow. So I had consented to all this stuff that I was like unconscious of, and now I wanted a different way, and I didn't even understand what that could look like, right? So I had to find people who were living that way, and I had to ask them what they did, and then I had to agree to consent to a way of life that was nothing like I'd ever lived. It was nothing that I had ever known. It was nothing that I could comprehend, for example, like working for myself or, living free of, addictive behaviors. Like I just had no idea how to make these things possible. But what I found is I started with a basic practice of self-awareness, asking myself what I wanted, asking myself what it could look like, envisioning greater and grander and bigger things than where I was at. And I had no idea what obstacles that I'd have to overcome or what that bigger, greater life could look like. But I knew that I could dream about it and I knew that there were people who were living it. So I started to almost like unconsent to this life that I was living. Like I had to stop accepting that, no, I am not predetermined to live this life that's been handed to me. No, I don't have to follow along in a kind of a like blind, sleep-like, unconsenting way to this life that I have. I can, in fact, disrupt it a little bit. I can, in fact, not know where I'm going, not know what the fuck to do next, and literally become okay with that because what the consent that I feel is real in my life now is I'm consenting to be myself. And I'm saying to myself, to the world, to life, to the universe, to a God of my understanding, like, okay, what I'm doing now is not saying that I'm just going to follow along and become, a lawyer because my dad's a lawyer or, this type of person because that's the way my mom is or this type of friend, sister, lover, whatever. No. I'm not consenting to it just because it's easier. It seems like an easier path and it's there. I don't have to do that. And in fact, what happens if you're really trying to self-actualize is what you think is the easier path all of a sudden becomes harder. Harder being defined as makes you less happy. And that's what happened to me. I consented to live this path, again, unaware, asleep, and was like living it. And then like waking up and going, I'm so not happy doing this, but what else is there? And so then I had to consent to be open-minded and I had to consent to become more self-aware and I had to consent to learn new tools and I had to consent to be more and more myself. And it was very scary. I'll be totally honest. You know what I mean? Like consenting or unconsenting from, the way life has been handed to you is very, very difficult because you have to unlearn things that you've learned, known, and thought were true your whole life. But I'm here to tell you that there's great, great freedom of your spirit, freedom in your mind. Almost I feel greater intelligence, greater emotional intelligence, greater rewards in terms of intrinsic rewards. Like I have worries just like anybody else about life and this and that and money and men and blah, 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 blah. But I also have this fundamental core that has consented to be myself. And above all, and more than anything else, it's the most important thing that drives me and drives my life is that I must be myself. And I have consented to that wholeheartedly. And I will not let that consension go. I have made an agreement with myself. I've made an agreement with higher powers. And I am convicted that this will be it for me. This will be it. The it being able to be me. Me, it, life, love. It's all the same thing. And that's what I'm consenting to. And it's no longer scary. It's actually quite stable because I don't have anything really to worry about. It's kind of like that. Pretty simple. It's kind of weird. Anyway, if anybody else looked at my life, they'd be like, you have plenty to worry about. I'm like, no, I don't have anything to worry about. So anyway, if you're interested in talking more about what you have to worry about, if you're interested in talking about how you can consent to having a greater, bigger, different, more loving, creative life, get in touch through message or email me. Thanks for spending time, and I hope you have a really good day.